Welcome to our official book release party for Sex Shamans. I'm KamalaDevi and I'm the editor of this collection. And I'm so delighted tonight to have 13 of our 20 co-authors on the call. And we're hoping to offer a transmission and maybe some tools on how to support you, our readers and our viewers, to raise your vibration, to reach higher states of ecstasy so that you can access nonlinear information and download inspiration, healing, vision. It's really an exploration of the topic of channeling. But before we get into the topic, I want to tell you a little bit about the book. So it just launched. It's maybe I'd say 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And so it is available. Hopefully you can get a copy on Amazon and all kinds of booksellers by Inner Traditions. And what it is it's kind of a two-part gift in that it's a deep, true story anthology from various voices of the Ista tribe. And so people are sharing, and you'll hear from our co-authors, they're vulnerable, like raw, real life stories and what challenges they had to go through to become the healers, teachers, witches, priests that they are today. And it's also, in addition to this personal narrative, there's I think 20 various exercises after each chapter. And these are powerful practices and tools and exercises so that you can cultivate your own, shamanic gifts. So that's the summary of the book. And I will say that the inspiration to write it is because we as a collective are often traveling around the world. We're meeting souls and finding that there's immense transformation available when people start to look inside and start to access their full potential. And we also recognize that we can't reach everyone, that the world really needs this message, and we can't go all over the world and keep giving this message. So we want to offer it in a form, book that someone who couldn't come and meet us in these shamanic initiations can actually get a taste of some of the practices that they can do as a solo practitioner, and also to connect them with more community and tribe. So that's part of the why, the impulse. But I think thematically that a lot of people have this idea of, oh, a shaman is something out there. It's something that is above me or beyond me. And once we start seeing the mosaic of how different each person's hero's journey is, how every soul has to go through this immense encounter, with their essence, with their truth, with their wounding, and to fall through all of who they think they are in order to realize their potential. When we see that journey looks different from every single person that you're going to meet today, then you realize, whoa, that's not out there. It's actually in here, that you too, your soul is also on this hero's journey. Okay, so more about the hero's journey and more about channeling after we meet the co-authors. We're going to start in order of the chapters. So we're going to start with Ohad Pele Ezrahi, who wrote The Secret Portal. Ohad, maybe you can tell us a little bit about who you are behind the scenes, maybe something that you didn't write about in your chapter.
Hi. These are really difficult questions, who I am. But I grew up in nature. That's my thing in life that made most, I guess as a child I was lost because even though I was in in a good place. My soul was not seen, was not recognized, and everything that was really dear for me was not recognized. So as soon as I can, I went to nature, and that's where I found resonance to what was alive within me. Nature for me was the deserts of Israel. I ran away when I was 14, and that's, I guess, home. The real home for me is connecting with nature. Nature itself. It's erotic for me. I think I wrote about it in the book as well. Nature is very erotic for me. It's my first lover, basically. Nature is my first lover. Before I made love with women, I made love with nature.
Beautiful.
And first lover, you never forget.
Thank you, Hud. Stephanie, we want to hear from the author of Chapter 3. You wrote Fully Expressed in the Body. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, well, I guess your invitation about what I didn't include in the book, I didn't include anything about my childhood, my upbringing. And I just want to say here that I also felt like I really didn't belong in my family. And I still feel like I don't know how I got there. I don't know what I was doing there with these other people who don't understand me still. And I love them dearly, and we're close, and yet I had another path. And yes, I went through a conservative, I was married twice and had children in my second marriage, and always found that I never really fit into conform to what society wanted me to do. Yes, I was a dancer. Yes, I had an artistic, creative passion that still wanted to express more. And when I was a single mum, I was a remedial massage therapist, and I also had an accident which meant that I still can't use my left hand. And so it became very clear that I needed to work energetically. And so this, with my introduction to Tantra several years before, which I talk about in the book, these were the events that unfolded this path.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. Des, I'm excited to introduce you, the author of It's All Story. Tell us a little bit, gosh, I'm tempted to ask you a new question. Tell us something, Des, that you don't want us to know.
Well, like the last two authors that just spoke, I think I can tell you something about me, but I just feel like one of the things that's coming through right now is that so many of us on this planet, we come onto this planet and we're not really seen as souls. And I feel like one of the things that's shifting is this reconnection and emphasis on being able to truly receive the beings that are coming in, our children that are coming in, and really seeing them for who they really are, rather than overlaying some kind of idea of who we want them to be and all this stuff that comes from ego. So something about me that the truth about me is I'm a pretty simple person. I love nature. I'm kind of just a stoner from Hawaii, and pretty down to earth, and just love life and love to live and love to share with people, and love nature, and here to make the most of this beautiful experience, and support this expansion of everyone stepping into joy and celebrating spirit, celebrating life, and this evolution of love that keeps expressing through the universe and continues to be refined. So Yeah, the best I can, and noticing where I get caught up in my own stories.
We love you, Des. Thank you.
I love you.
I'm excited to share next. I'm actually also an author in this collection. So chapter 5, oh, you know, it's because I'm reading, this is so funny. I have to say, I'll share next, but there's so many iterations when you're writing a book, so many versions, and I just realized I'm reading off of an old table of contents. So this is not even the order in the book. So yeah, I get to be humble about that. My chapter is called Dancing Between Dimensions. And as I'm listening to my peers, I recognize that we've all really been through so many, not just one dark night of the soul, but so many different portals. And the crisis that I hit that actually occurred like seizures in my body, that occurred like I lost function, I lost control, where I had to totally humble myself and get that something bigger than me is operating through me, was the initiation to this latest incarnation. So yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable to share about how, you know, I like to look all put together, like have it all together, and then really just, it took falling apart to the core to recognize, you know, that I'm just like everyone else at the feet of the mystery, you know, just completely, yeah, and sometimes we need to just let it all go to let the source work through us, which is what I'm humbly still, you know, working on and working through and learning to do. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Raffaello, who wrote the chapter. Let's see, where's Raffaello? There you are. The chapter is called
Hello.
If You Want, You Can. What do you want to share?
That was my motto in those years. It still is one of them. You know, as much as I love the version of myself that, you know, I cherish the version of myself that is embedded in that chapter, was very important for me. I also realize now, you know, when you ask, all of a sudden it comes to me that that also that chapter expresses a lot of my inner conflict and almost this swinging between opposites that's been a dominant of my whole life. So I grew up in a actually very loving family, and neither too wealthy nor too poor, like, you know, kind of like in the middle. And then but I had this strong inner conflict and diversity in me, like really embracing opposite energies. So I created a lot of conflict for myself and for my family, and I found conflict outside, which makes me a little bit embarrassed because I really shouldn't have, you know, the need to do that, but I did. And that was a lot of my awakening happened to swinging between extreme opposites. So, you know, that version of me that's in the chapter shows how I basically went out and started fighting the world because I had peace in my own house. So I brought conflict to the world. And I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but that was my way to grow and to understand.
Thanks for tattletelling on yourself.
I don't even know what that means, but you're welcome.
It's like confessing. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So next I'm going to call on Laurie Handlers. And this goddess wrote the chapter called Tales of a Juicy Crone. What do you want to share?
You know, it's funny because I was wondering, I thought it was chapter 2, so I couldn't figure out how were you going out of order? But anyway, yeah, I want to share 2 things. I'm glad Raffaello went before me. One is, like, when I came out, my parents said to me that I was always screaming no. Like they just said, I never wanted to go to sleep and I never wanted to do what they wanted me to do. I never wanted to follow any rules. So I think I just was like this. But in the shamanic part that you were discussing, like when you were talking about going in between portals, some of you know, I used to work at Landmark Education, and I was very successful at Landmark Education. And I remember when I was trying out to be like some kind of a leader there, and I was in front of 500 people, and I had to just say really simple words like hello and welcome. And they kept stopping me and saying, you're using sexual energy. You're turning everybody in this audience on. And I was like, no, I was so humiliated. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. You know, and they said, try again. And I would say hello and welcome again. And they would say, I don't know, we need a cigarette. Everyone needs a cigarette now. And I was humiliated, you know, and when I actually went on staff, I put my sexuality into a drawer in my desk. And I didn't take it out again until I left that job 4 years later. But now, because I'm this, you know, because I'm in ISTA, because I've been a Tantra teacher, because I'm a juicy crone, when I look back now, if I was to tell the truth, I was using my sexual energy. Of course I was using my sexual energy. This is my energy. This is what I have. This is who I am. And I can't be humiliated for it anymore. So I mean, I feel like that's a superpower, and I didn't know then what I know now, how powerful it is and how it actually, sexual energy runs the world.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. We're going to turn our attention to Soul Love. And Soul Love's chapter is called Connection with Profound Magic. Do we have our spotlight on Soul Love? Good.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah.
And welcome, everybody. Such an honor to share this hour and a half with my esteemed authors and with our viewers. Connection with Profound Magic may seem like a beautiful moment in time, or a moment of bliss, or a moment of grace, but it actually occurs by going through the shadows and going through the darkness and going through all the things that keep you from being able to be fully present, alive in your body, and be able to support others in doing so. And as I hear my co-authors speak, I hear a theme of not fitting in, being misunderstood, not being seen, or being judged in terms of how we are seen. And I think we've all gone through this in some way, in some shape, in some time. And to be able to come to the other side of this allows for the space of magic. If we're caught up in not fitting in, if we're caught up in not being seen, if we're caught up in not being misunderstood, the energy to be fully present, to support others in their transformation gets sidelined. And so the journey that you're hearing from all the co-authors, I imagine, is the journey of many others as well. And I welcome you and thank you for joining us today. And just let you know that we're not that different than you. We're humans who have gone through our journeys, who have written about them in different shapes and forms in our chapter, but we're all going through the same thing on this planet right now in our unique, special ways. And hopefully the book will inspire everybody to be able to go through their journeys and come out with gifts and power and their own shamanic qualities that can assist others in helping transform our beautiful planet.
Thank you. Beautiful. So I'm looking around our circle for KamalaDevi. I thought she was with us today, but
I am?
yes, excellent. because you're up next. We want to spotlight you and share that your chapter is called Beyond Labels and Credentials.
Yes.
Yes. So here we are. And it's actually sweet. I feel your glowing presence. And I'm imagining that we're all around a campfire and we're, inviting some new people to our circle. And I just want you to just shine some of your radiance on us.
So this title comes from, I would be very happy to be around the fire, because for me also nature, I grew up in Brazil in the tropics, very free, my body, and very connected with nature. For me, not understanding at all what people are doing and living and choices, I would just go to nature and ride a horse and go to the ocean. So when my sexuality starts to be vibrating, I couldn't be repressed or tamed anymore, and they started fighting from that place of aliveness. It was this fire was just like, oh, this is natural. Why would anybody? I could feel how natural it was in my body. I never really lived a conventional life ever, so it's very difficult for me to put labels in things. I had to I learned how to trust my inner whispers and the guidance that would come from being in nature, and then the guidance that would come from going into incredible spaces through sexuality that nobody that I knew what it was. But through those energies of deep depths of connection with myself and with the universe through someone else, these portals started to open, that whispers started to be louder inside and to guide me through the steps of my life. And in one of the moments, I went to India and I lived naked in the jungle because I didn't know what to do anymore with my life. I just knew what I didn't want to do. And in that moment, someone said, "You're tantric." Just, what? Tantric? I never heard this in my life. Didn't know what that was. But the sensitivity that I've developed came clearly through the merging of a spirituality that was ignited and opened up by nature and by my sexuality. So it took me a while to understand and stay in the alignment of three things that usually people wouldn't put together, because the spiritual groups would be very much separate from the body, and the people that were more connected with sexuality didn't have any connection with anything more than just having pleasure. And it's been a journey, which is very now what I feel, what I can share is the embracing this naturalness of the body vibrating in pleasure and joy, and opening the portals to cosmic energy, however we want to call it, to spaciousness of a guidance that comes through without any logic, that's not linear, that one don't know when it's coming. So just what I love is to feel and see when people click on that and start moving with that. It's just like getting the torch and go like, yeah, I trust that. I trust that inner vibrance and the inner radiance that is, everybody has it. Can be a bit hidden, can be a bit, pushed down for circumstances, but igniting that is my greatest joy.
Thank you. Beautiful. We're going next to Janine Mare. And so I want to say something about, Janine, your chapter. As we spotlight you, there we are. So obviously writing a book is like we're immortalizing these stories, and it's framed in a moment in time. And I want to share that when I got your chapter, I felt your land so intimately as you described the red earth. It was like reading about a lover. And the book got published like at the same time that the recent Australian fires happened and your land got ravished by the flames. And like it like right now my heart hurts that story of how that, you know, like kind of transformation and the burning and the new life coming through didn't make it into the book. So I just wanted to spotlight that for a moment. But tell us, your chapter is called Embodied Endarkenment. Tell us what's in your heart.
Yeah, it's when you speak of the land, that's really deeply what's in my heart, and in some ways they're very connected. I feel like the land has been such a teacher for me. I knew a few years ago I needed to live in the wild. I wanted to be in the wild, and I didn't even know where that would be in the world, but I knew it would be the land that would call me, which interestingly ended up only like 15 minutes from where I've lived my whole life, in this little country town that I'm still, living in. And this journey of going out in the world and having these amazing experiences, and this anchoring and grounding of also being in this other reality here as well. And so for me, the endarkenment is, people talk about enlightenment and going to the light. And that was initially the earlier part of my life, until I needed to explore and descend and go into my body and into a deeper place in myself, and which I've coined, or other people have coined, endarkenment, and getting to experience these other parts of myself. And somehow that's connected with the land as well, because yes, as many know, the bushfires ravaged Australia, and it was a deep journey when the fire came towards this land, and the 100 acres burnt, it all burnt. And that whole journey of being with the land through the burning, and being with the land in the aftermath, walking through in those days after, in the complete stillness where all life had gone, all the animals had gone, no birds, in this aftermath of the ashes, where there was still smoke burning from tree stumps and holes in the ground. But then kind of going through another couple of years of drought, really, of no rain, where this land was just settling into this aftermath of the fire. And now a metaphor for where I hope we're going on the planet in the aftermath of this experience that we're all collectively going through, the explosion of life. Because right now this land is exploding into life. It is so alive. There's rain has come, and there's new plants and species and regeneration. And something about the Australian bush is when fire comes through, some of the trees drop seeds that they only ever drop when fire is there. So new growth and aliveness is here. And I'm loving being here in this moment of global pause. Really vibrating with that new life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ooh, I can feel that in my body. We're going to pass the torch to Patrick. So Patrick Alterman wrote the chapter Losing Religion and Finding God. Ooh, what a cool techno ultraviolet DJ space you look like you're calling in from.
Yeah, well, it's quite late here. This is my night lights. It's funny, everybody talks about the land and nature. I'm a city boy through and through, and I guess I've turned out to be a techno shaman of sorts. I ask myself sometimes, how does a Christian minister and priest end up in a book about sex shamans and their secrets? And I think, for me, a shaman, the Christian version of shaman is the prophet, and they were all crazy. out of their minds because they saw the world not as it is, but seeing the world as it could be, and then living like the world is like that. And so simply living out a different reality in the midst of the present one makes people look crazy, but it is, for me, my calling, and what gives my life juice. Imagining that world where sexuality, physical contact, full expression of everybody's being is just a natural thing, as opposed to hiding and posturing and pretending and playing along with the party line, as it were. I think, KD, now you're muted.
That's because I had a big jetliner going overhead and I didn't want to interrupt your talk. And I'm back to announce, okay, so we're looking around the circle, and I wanted to give a heads up to Sean, Ria, Dawn. This is the order in which we're going to be called on before Bruce is my final author on the call, I believe. But if there's another author that called in, send me a message because I don't want to miss anyone. Okay. Turning over now to Dawn, who did we say was next? Thank you. Okay, Crystal Dawn. What we're going to do is hear from a midwife who wrote the chapter Birthing. Oops, we've got Dawn. Great, let's stay with Dawn. And then we'll go to Crystal Dawn. We've got two Dawns in our coven. So Dawn's chapter was about the goddess of the underworld. Is it queen of the underworld or goddess?
Queen of the underworld. Persephone was the queen of the underworld. She descended into the underworld after being a maiden up in the upper realms. Do you want to say anything else before I plunge in?
No, just keep sharing your heart.
Plunging.
Yeah.
Keep plunging deep into the earth matter. So yeah, the one who has the quality of light and innocence and hope and really brings this spring, and she's a real symbol of this time of year when spring is emerging and is the one who brings the life back to the planet after Demeter has cast the snowy world and has not let anything grow on the earth because her daughter was taken to the underworld. Yes, so Persephone goes to the underworld and becomes the queen because really through the light of her being, she goes and pierces through the darkness. And even though the people that were in a state of being unborn in the underworld, you know, every state of decay and leprosy, she looks with love and compassion. And also becomes a woman unto herself and really knows herself through lovemaking, and so in that way, I feel like you were so beautiful. I remember us being in Spain in nature and doing a training there, and I was thinking, what is my portal in through this book? And you aligned me to the story, which is so alive with me as a means of telling my own story. And I feel like it was really a beautiful opportunity to align with the place inside me that is aligned and connected with my mother and in the dark. And so I feel for me what's moving as I reread the chapter recently is this sense of disparate pieces and how it can seem to be so scattered and seemingly unified. And ultimately, like, if I think of my 20s and my 30s and all of these different ways and all of these shamanic studies and all of this, you know, even ecstatic nightlife and so many different things that all actually led me to where I am now. And I feel like that's a way that I feel like to place in the hearts of our readers and people on this call, is to say that it doesn't matter what you feel like your ultimate outcome is going to be, in the sense of following your heart every step of the way. And people said, wow, you couldn't have tailored a better job for yourself. And I don't know how you found it, but you found to do exactly what you are, and keep on following your heart, bringing it in.
Beautiful, sister. Yeah, I want to share, before we go to Crystal Dawn, that Dawn Cherie recently, you know, I think it was just yesterday, was doing this STAR initiative, which is this shamanic theater. And it's so, you know, storytelling, whether it's live on stage or it's in words on the page, it's so important to our understanding of narrative. Our fabric of reality in many ways is woven by stories. So it's really fun to see how multidimensional these stories can come through. So we're going to Crystal Dawn Morris, who is, as I mentioned, a midwife of over 2,500 births before she really moved into midwifing the new earth. And so her chapter is called Birthing a New Reality.
Okay. Yeah, so great to be here with all of you. Yes, I want to honor KamalaDevi, the midwife who, as the editor of this book, midwifed this book, because as a midwife, I know how much work that is, and it takes a lot of space holding. So I appreciate that in you. And why I called my chapter Birthing a New Reality was because I think, like many of you, I have often felt that I was like that stranger in a strange land who came to the earth really to share love, and then arriving and recognizing as a very small child that the adults around me, who on one level were supposed to keep me safe, I really felt like they didn't have a clue who or what they were. And I tell in the story in my chapter about my first spiritual awakening, like really like sort of samadhi experience, where I went into bliss for a week. And on the 8th morning, I woke up and suddenly I was back in ordinary reality. And I was like, wow, how did that happen? Because I know the bliss I was experiencing is here, but I'm not feeling it in the same way. And the message that came to me was to go find a man and have children, which was kind of not what I was expecting at all. But I tend to have always really listened to spirit, and spirit has always been my guide. So I did that. And in giving birth to my oldest son, that whole process of the pregnancy and the birth and breastfeeding and being a mom, I was just really, for me, it made me recognize that giving birth is the embodiment of the goddess, of divine bringing life forth. And it felt like people didn't know that. And I was like baffled, like, how is it that something so sacred can become a medical sort of procedure and just sort of be something that, you know, most people just told me all terrible things about what it was going to be like. And for me, it was the most amazing experience. And I really felt called to become a midwife because I wanted to support women to know they were the divine in giving birth. And as part of that journey for myself is also the recognition that every child is the divine child. So I was raised Protestant. So every child that's born is basically another version of what one might say Jesus from a Protestant perspective, which means that we're all the divine. And so as I journeyed along my journey, that eventually brought me to non-dual tantra, which is what I'm super passionate about now, and the real recognition that we're all the divine in every moment, co-creating every expression. And it's really, when you kind of get that, then every moment is an opportunity to make love with life, which is what I was teaching about yesterday in the festival. And once you learn, not just learn it and know it in your mind, but once you really know it in every fiber of your being, life becomes such a different experience, and it doesn't really matter what it looks like. It's making love to life no matter what it looks like. And how can I recognize that even if what's arising, like I was in Australia ready to teach an ISTA training when the COVID thing happened and the government suddenly said we couldn't have, people, in the space that we had for the people. So we had to cancel the ISTA training. And but how do I open my heart and accept that this is what's unfolding, and somehow I'm a co-creator of this as well. And recently I was meditating and I asked for the virus, the coronavirus, to come to me and explain to me, and what it said, that it was really here to help us to recognize just how connected we all are. We're all connected, we're all one, there is no separation. And its intention is to show us that our immune systems are connected, our financial systems are connected, our cultures are connected. We're all connecting now through Zoom. So to me, and my deepest hope and prayer is that this whole global pandemic is an opportunity to wake us up. My name is Crystal Dawn, like the rising sun comes to wake you up. To wake us up to the fact that we're divine, and that if this is an opportunity on the planet, rather than listening to some of the people in power who may not have woken up, this is an opportunity for us at the grassroots to wake ourselves up and say, hey, what is the life I want to create on this planet? What is the culture I want to create on this planet? What is the art? What is the beauty? What kind of world do I want to leave for my children and my grandchildren, versus just going along to get along, which is more of an egoic way of being. So thank you.
Good. So we're moving on over to Sean, who I know woke up really early for this. There you are. And your chapter is, we're unmuting you. Your chapter is From Frozen to Flowing. Sean O'Fallon. O'Fallon.
Hey,
yes.
hello. So first of all, thank you for creating this Kamala. I had a real resistance to writing, and you really encouraged me, which was really, really amazing. So thank you. And I'm sitting here listening into everyone and trying to feel into myself and what it is I want to share. And I feel if I was to share my resume, my CV as an adult, I would just sit here completely and utterly fucking frozen. So the last thing I want to do. And who I am is this 5-6-year-old child that just wants to burst out of this body and just play and jump up and down and be at a festival where there's a dance floor and we can just run around and play with each other. That's when I become most alive, and that's when I become a channel, and that's how I communicate best. Like I feel I'm going to really struggle to share who I am through words. It's like you might hear something, but when you see me in my aliveness, dancing, moving, playing, weaving from person to person, that's so who I am. And I want other people to play and become more alive and become free and become expressive and just let go of all this fucking baggage that so many of us hold. Yeah, and when I wrote the chapter, like I'm actually glad the book came out now, because now I feel like I'm sort of flowing. Whereas when I wrote the chapter, I was from frozen to frozen with occasional bits of flow. Whereas now I feel like I'm from frozen to flowing with occasional freeze. And I just want to add something in. It's inspired by Rafa. Was I got shut down. Something, I won't go into my wounds, but something shut me down when I was 6 or 7 years old. And then from 7 till 12, I was a complete childhood delinquent. I was stealing. And then when I would get caught stealing, I became part of a gang of thieves, 3 of us who trained younger guys to steal for us. And I was dealing porn, and I was smoking cigarettes regularly from 7 years old. So this life force wanted to move through me, so it moved through in all these unhealthy ways. And now that I've come to ISTA, being among all you incredible, powerful beings has allowed my life force to flow through in a really healthy, loving way. So I'm so fucking grateful to you all. And peace for me as well is letting go of my label of my vulnerability being my superpower, and it is one of them, but my playfulness is the actual superpower that's wanting to come through more in my facilitation. So I want to bring that through and let go of the label that I'm just the vulnerable one.
Woohoo. Beautiful, Sean. So before I click over to Ria, I had a quick question for you, which is, how many jumps have you taken from airplanes?
Unmute. Good question. So I've done 3,000 jumps, and I did that as part of a way of becoming alive. And Bruce, if you're still on the call, I want to thank you for this constant dark feedback. I've retired from skydiving because it wasn't supporting my nervous system in terms of working. And now I've become more alive, and now I can skydive just for fun instead of for work. So thank you if you're out there.
Gorgeous. 3,000 jumps. Yeah. Okay, sweet. So we're tuning into Ria, who I think is on the call. There you are.
Sure am.
Okay, so your chapter is My Second Puberty. What do you want?
Great, yes. So just like puberty, going through an initiation where my body completely changed, you know. Before I was like a little tomboy running through nature, and all of a sudden I developed breasts and I got my period, and I didn't know who I was in the identity of this becoming woman. It was similar in my journey of stepping into sexual shamanism. I didn't know what I was doing. I was running around, you know, like a boarded chest, and all of a sudden I step into this total initiation that only makes sense in retrospect, looking back at it. But part of it is this rebelliousness of going through pre-pubescent teenage years. In order to find my truth, I needed to rebel against everything that wasn't me, wasn't truth, wasn't love. And in that rebellion, going up against the grain, which was the majority of the world not listening to the heart, not listening to the deepest truth, created a lot of pain and created a lot of grit, which supported my evolution. It was almost like having this elastic band stretch completely away from my soul for me to snap back into soul. So it was a massive up-leveling, and part of learning or part of transformation is becoming someone I'm no longer. And so there's the death and the rebirth in that, and the best way I was able to describe it in one life cycle was as a puberty.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, last on our roster, and it looks like, Mia will do the epilogue after we hear from Bruce, whose final chapter in the book is actually called Bolt, which is a nickname for Bruce. What would you like to share?
Well, I think maybe first I'll start with that. I think my life progressed like from one lightning strike to the next. And in those lightning strikes, all of a sudden, everything arrives at once. So yes, I'm a small boy or a young man trying to have an identity, but at the same time, I'm everything, and I'm internal, and it's all happening at once. And I'm the ocean and the forest. And then I also have to find some way of responding to being a human being. So I feel for me that journey of trying to balance being in a body, being someone, and being everything and everyone all at once has been the journey. It's been a journey of initiation, and I feel like that's the transmission I want to offer as well in terms of people reading these books, because now we're doing online Zoom, and we're doing books, and we're an embodied organization. But I remember when I first read books when I was young, feeling like there is a transmission coming through this book. I'm not just reading words. I'm actually being transported to a possibility and to a permission from somebody else who has lived a wild, alive life that's giving me permission to through the spoken or the written word. So I want to say that the way of reading this book is as important as the writing of it. And so to read it as if your life really mattered, as if the pages could open and a transmission of the whole universe could come through, to listen with your body and to tune in to what's behind these words on paper, which is people's lives, the core of their being. And I think the thing that I was most grateful for from beings around me was when somebody opened up beyond their normal social persona and they gave me a glimpse that the same thing that was beating in my heart was living inside them. And that somehow, instead of me hearing about their story, I was hearing about my own story and having permission to deeply live it, that it was going to be unlike everyone else's, but at the same time, it was everybody else's, and I was that part of them that had the grace or the balls or the desperation to live a truly unique life.
Yeah, and I'm in a moment going to read a chapter or a paragraph or two from your forward, because Bruce also wrote the forward to the book, and it's a great frame for what we're doing here and what we'll talk about next. I know we're getting close to the end of the hour and we want to shake our body and get a little break, but first I want to kind of introduce, I don't know if you can see my pictures. This is me not being technological and not using the share screen feature. Instead, I've got a physical book in my hand as I show you that gorgeous goddess Mia, whose poetry graces the end of our book. So let's put the spotlight on her as she shares a word or two as the poet and photographer for the epilogue, My Fucking God.
Yeah, thank you, KamalaDevi, and everyone. I really wanted to, it was interesting, I wrote an autobiography and then you asked if you could put this poem in instead, and it really revealed to me how much my life has been about how sacred my body has always been, me of having to hide it when people started to point at it and criticize it and bully me for it and, you know, whatever, sexualize me for it. And putting out this poem into this book is kind of like, okay, but the main message of our bodies has always been that this is my vehicle of worship, and this is where I come alive, and this is where I connect to you. And it feels really vulnerable, first of all, to be naked in the eyes of the world. But it's really representing how can we bring that core out into the planet and the whole world to see and be vulnerable with that. So yeah, I'm grateful to be a part of this.
Thank you, Mia. I often consider Mia like one of Ista's muses, and it's so important to have the multiple arts. You know, we're the School of Temple Arts, so poetry, having poetry and photography is a really important part of our expression. We're not just words on the page. And so let's take this moment to actually shake our bodies. So I'm going to invite everyone to, wherever you are, stand up and just get some blood flowing, because we've got a little bit longer. We want to go a little bit deeper. And my invitation to you is to focus on your pelvis. So take maybe 5 minutes to tune in and feel what's happening at the base of your body, particularly your tailbone and your grounding cords. So I know most of us are on mute, but I'm going to invite you to make some sound. And in fact, to your co-authors, you can unmute yourself and make some sound just to bring different frequencies into the space. And maybe you can put it on.
Yeah.
A little bit of balagan, a little chaos.
Meow, 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 meow.
Yeah.
So that was a very brief 5 minutes, but but we're time traveling back in, and I'm gonna, so that Bruce doesn't have to find his reading glasses, I'm gonna be your reader, and then I'll ask you to comment a bit on this. So take a few breaths and settle in. I did get some questions. Oh, good. So here's the order of things. I'm going to read a piece from the foreword, which will frame a juicier conversation that I'd like to have, during which and afterwards, I'd like to have you ask questions that are specific to, not in your head, not like theoretical, conceptual questions, but real practical, like what's going to support you in opening your channel. And if you don't know what channeling is, no problem. Listen, be open to this conversation and see what gets inspired. But our admin will read some of those questions to us, or you can put them here in the chat, and then we'll just see if someone in the panel wants to answer those. But so another few breaths. And I'll share that the title of Bruce's foreword is All Our Settled Bodies. And also in this foreword, which I'm not going to read, but if you haven't read, he has the poem Aroused, which is, it's such a transmission of essentially what we're doing here. As we're waking up as individual pillars, we're like, the spirit of Ista is moving through these various sacred parts of the land, this movement, these, not just Ista, but the sex shamans that are beyond, we're waking each other up. And as we become alive, we're, as he says, the erectile tissue of the earth. So Gaia is coming alive and she's getting aroused through us. So I really invite you to enjoy, every word in the book, including and especially the foreword, but this is going to frame our deeper discussion. Each of us is like a radio that can be turned to different frequencies. Most people in modern society have tuned out all the higher and lower frequencies and live within a narrow band of their dulled outer senses. Doing so seems to be required of them to earn a living, and this tuning out is reinforced by the surrounding culture, protecting them from their fear of death. A shaman is someone who has learned to listen to many stations at once, integrating the different music and news broadcasts into a coherent whole. Being a shaman does not, however, protect us from our humanness and the often intensely vulnerable experience of showing up within the so-called normal bands of experience. If anything, it increases the shaman's sensitivity because the extraordinary is curled up inside the ordinary. So I'm going to skip ahead because this paragraph kind of frames what we're going to talk about. In these pages are the different stories of intimate beloveds. So one of the beautiful things about this tribe of no tribe is that there's little in our personalities that unites us. We do not share the same ideologies, and we have each forged paths in our own unique and wild ways, breaking free into authentic lives that we know to be sourced from our own core. These words also represent only the surface of our profound journeys. Being that we all are tuned into different stations, and we each have our wild, unique perspectives, I like to, invite the panel to talk a little bit about, what it is that they're tuning into when we go into, whether it's healing or ecstatic trance or into the extraordinary. And so this is very minimizing to say this, but to help us think about the different stations. So I'll be reductionary and I'll name some of them, but these dimensions are so wide and so beyond, they're infinite, really. So when we do an invocation, oftentimes at the beginning of an extraordinary container, we will call in our allies. Some of those allies live, like the earthbound animal spirits, ancestors. Sometimes we're calling in angel frequencies or ascendant masters, as well as alien energies or star beings. And so although that's just naming a few, a lot of times what we're doing is tuning in out of the personality, getting the ego out of our way into the soul and source, so that we can just be more coherent in our expression of self. And so I'm gonna invite us to kind of feel into what it's both the not what channeling is, but how we channel. Because as we kind of share this, it's to inspire our readers and our audience to maybe ask questions that can help them access higher frequencies. So this is that moment where I'm going to look around, or actually you can use the chat, and I'm going to I'm going to see who's feeling the charge around this question of what do we what helps us channel? What is channeling to you? What helps you access, your greatest channel? And I've already got some juicy questions, but I want to start maybe just a few. We're not going to hear from everyone. It's just who's got the charge around what helps you channel. And Guy, you can help me look too. Oh, good. I've got Laurie Handlers. And then after Laurie, who? On that question, is there another? Got Patrick and Sean. So we'll just do 3 responses to that, and then we'll answer some questions. Laurie.
For me, it's Lottie. Oh yeah, okay. For me, it's Lottie Han. I gave a whole transmission on it last night in the festival, which might have been some people's morning, I don't know, but it's going into a space of moving from inner guidance in the unknown, and doing that for hours if needs be, doing that for short periods of time, doing it for long periods of time. Lottie Han is how I channel. But I will also want to add that sometimes when I'm making love, I visit the void. Like I must be having a DMT release or something. And so I go away and then I come back. And sometimes I get incredible messages then. I'm working on more things in nature. I was very jealous of all the people who said nature, and Bruce has told me to look more into nature. So I'm doing that, Bruce. But in my own way, Lottie Han is what I do anywhere.
Gorgeous. Thank you. I realized that I asked Bruce to comment on my reading on your forward, and then I skipped over you. So I want to come back to you, Bruce, before the hearing from the other 2. How'd I do reading your paragraph because it's kind of embarrassing reading the words of someone who's here.
I love I love the sound of my words coming out of your mouth. In fact, maybe you could maybe you'd be willing to do all my books as audio books. They're beautiful. I think that the only comment that I wanted to make is just the power of the anthology is that we're moving from an age where the individual has been like deified to the place where our information has to come through group. Like we each are very individual doorways or channels into the divine, but there is a magic that comes from linking those channels together, and from the reader's perspective, being able to drink from so many different springs. And so there's a magic that happens in the anthology, and I want to also just appreciate you for being the womb that took so many different forms of divine seed into it and made this thing.
Ooh, I love the metaphor. There's a thing called, it's superfuncionation. Am I saying that right? But it's actually a womb that can take, what is it? It's when you have twins and it's not DNA that splits, it's actually two sperms get simultaneously fostered in one womb. Maybe my husband Michael can remember, but the word is superfuncionation, which I just think is a fascinating word in and of itself. But in this case, it did feel like taking it from 20 different shamans. It was pretty hot, I tell you, as far as group co-creative energy.
Yeah, like a dog.
Okay.
A female dog can have puppies from multiple fathers.
That's what it is. Okay, good. It's not just two sperms. It's that some animals can have a litter from multiple, sperm donors. So, okay, next we said we were going to hear from Patrick.
All right. So coming in from multiple sperm donors to channeling. For me, the most important thing is to just get out of your own way. And being really cerebral and a lot in my mind, I channel when I do the dishes. I channel when I dance. I channel when I make love. I channel when I stand in the shower. Every time I'm doing something, and many times if it's like repetitive and I'm just doing it with my hands, driving a car, and my mind, that part of my mind that would interject, that would censor or filter, is doing something else, then source or spirit can flow through. So for me, it's just getting out of my own way.
Beautiful. Thank you. I believe we had somebody else that felt the charge. Can I have a reminder? Excellence, Sean.
Okay, so I'm surprised that I'm putting up my hand, because when you sent this around this morning, I was like, channel? Fuck. I have no fucking clue how to channel. That's not what I do. And I went into like, I'm going to sit in the back corner and whatever. But then as my aliveness started to come through, I realized that it's when my life force is flowing, then ideas just start flowing. So when I hear things like multidimensional light beings, downloads, people who sit in meditation and all these things come through, I've done that for years and nothing fucking happens. I'll sit in front of this computer for like days and days trying to come up with an idea. I actually did it for 3 weeks. Then I got on my bike and I just cycled for 2 hours and I came back with so many fucking ideas. It was incredible. So just being in my flow, what makes me alive, then stuff just comes through. And I just want to say one other thing as well, is that when I'm around people in my work, it's not that I get an idea, it's a very embodied sense. So like when we're at an ISTA training, I feel one of the places where I channel the most is in the morning dance. And I'm moving around and I'm feeling areas, because freeze is my thing, or was my thing. I'm feeling areas where people might be a little bit frozen. And I just feel it on an embodied level. and I might dance close to them, and I can feel if I dance big to them, that's not going to work. And I might just slowly move by in a really gentle way. And that's all that's needed. And then I move on. So I feel that's a part of my shaman. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I want to acknowledge that Sean was one of those, like, creativity sometimes takes a deadline. It's like, okay, here's a deadline. There's got to be a cutoff. And I was working with a lot of people who wanted to be in the book. And Sean came in within 24 hours of the deadline. I think he was like, okay, I'm ready to write. And he wrote it. It's not that he turned it in then, it's that he actually wrote it. And I want to bring that up because deadlines they can actually help pressurize and create an extraordinary reality where we have to time travel and access something else to come through us. So there's a lot of magic in, and many of you know what it's like the night before a turn paper is due, and then surprisingly something comes through and writes it, even though your mind couldn't have done it without that. Beautiful. So I want to ask for questions from the group on this topic, but I want to read the one that caught my eye first is from Jerry. When we're channeling, how do we know if we're really channeling the light versus the dark? Okay, so I'm gonna open this up to the panel, and I want to share that I have done, I think, 5 radio interviews about our book. After it got published, our publisher put us in touch with these different people, and some of them are not sex positive friendly, interviews. And I did this one interview where they're in Louisiana, I believe, and the radio announcer said, haven't you ever seen that 80s movie where it's called the movie is about a possession, where somebody's has a sexual energy that comes in and rapes them at night and takes over them, and they have no volition, that this entity is like, how do you know your book, Sex Shamans, isn't going to like unleash this kind of darkness into the world? And I was like, wow, I didn't expect I'd be answering these kinds of questions. So Jerry brings up a question that's on people's minds, and I'd love to hear from our panel about this distinction of channeling dark and or dangerous energies. How do we, or even the conversation of protection, how do we protect our bodies and souls from that? So I'm looking around the circle. Who's got the charge?
I'd love to start out.
I hear Des. Was it Crystal Dawn as well?
Yes, I can do it, but if Des wants to go first, that's fine.
Great.
I'm not going to go on very long, but this whole idea of light and dark, and the light being safe and the dark not, is just absurd. I know a lot of people that channel a lot of light stuff, and it's actually very dangerous. And so to step out of that polarity and to realize that the dark is really nurturing and oftentimes very warm, sometimes cooling, and the dark is just as valid as the light and has nothing to do with safety or love, that both the light and dark. I just want to start with that, just questioning our perceptions of light and dark, and I'll let Crystal Dawn take.
Thank you.
So yeah, Des said some of the words that I was going to say. So, but from a non-dual perspective, the light, the dark, no difference. I believe Shakti Gawain is the one who made that quote. But I really like that quote, and the recognition that, because we have this idea from religion that somehow, God, there's the light and the dark, and there's heaven and hell and good and evil and all that. And really, if you recognize from a non-dual perspective, it's all the divine, it's all one, then it's not a matter of light, what is it, light or dark, but it is noticing, is it coming from the place of grasping and aversion, which is more the egoic place, or is it coming from a place of wanting to be in service? So that's what I would say. So, and sometimes things that create suffering or cause chaos are the things that wake us the fuck up. So it's not to avoid feeling a contraction or to avoid any situation. The things that challenge us are often actually the gift that finally gets us to surrender and have our breakthrough so we can wake up and know our true nature.
Beautiful.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, Kamala.
One of the issues that is very common, especially in people that work with bodies and body work, is the idea of protection. It's shielding yourself. And my background is just the opposite. Is more I'm open, more everything moves through. And the idea of a channel is openness. So it doesn't make any sense to close to a certain layer and then open to another layer. It's about letting it move through. And the difference is when you're holding on to something, definitely can affect you, even when you're touching someone that has a pain and you're holding on to that pain inside you. That is what divides. But when there's light and dark and all the shades of gray moving through you without attachment, without holding on to what is better or what's not better, there is a sense of fluidity that embraces everything. It doesn't make any difference. And I've experienced that for many years, giving body work and touching people in many different ways, that even though my way to touch people makes me feel what they're feeling, but I don't hold on. So letting it move through me only hasn't reached my palette of sensitivity. And the moments that I felt somehow affected were moments that I realized I'm identified with this feeling or with this pain. So when I'm not, it's just flow.
Gorgeous.
I also have something to say that you have
Great.
space. Yeah, I just want to make a distinction between all these polarities. Often that dark and light is used in terms of like dark as being the denser energies and light as being more the subtle. But I often think that what people are also pointing towards is they're pointing towards the difference between energies that are more ego driven, so they're more oriented towards self and power over, versus energies that are genuinely beneficial for everybody. And so I do think that there is an important...
See, if we're mostly back on, we can get started. But thank you guys for your patience. It wouldn't be a festival without a little bit of chaos. I think Bruce was mid-sentence, so let's look for him as the cue. Oh, good, he's back on. So we're gonna put the spotlight back on you, and our collective intention is just to wrap up within, will it work, Guy, if we have the 10 minutes to wrap? 10 minutes, okay, great. Okay, so recording is resumed, and Bruce, I know you were mid-sentence, but I think we heard you.
And I'm not sure what sentence I was mid, but the essence of what I wanted to say is that I think when people have concern about light and dark, they're concerned about being overtaken by energies that they may not be able to handle, or that may have negative influences and so on. I just want to say that love is the shield. That if the core of your motive and of your alignment is around love, then that's the surest way of keeping your heart clear and your spiritual shamanic hygiene and immune system healthy.
Gorgeous. Also, for the sake of being practical, we're really inviting people to to try on, to embody, to play with these practices. And the book actually has a number of exercises. We've got 20 exercises, many of which are about raising your vibration and channeling these energies. In fact, the first one in there is about connecting with your ancestors. So I want to empower people to really feel like that they're, and it's less about, you know, safe in terms of protection and more about vibrating. So I was wondering, in kind of conclusion to this conversation, if one of our speakers, I'm looking around for Janine, because I know this is a teaching that's really near and dear to her heart, can talk a little bit about what it is to vibrate. You know, as Bruce talks about love is the answer, Janine, I think there's an article that you recently wrote about the coronavirus, and it's like, you know, hey, when we, instead of being in fear of the virus, that's something out there, that when we embrace it and vibrate, that it really protects us in a different way. Can you speak to that if it resonates?
Yeah, well, vibration is one of my favorite subjects. I guess there's different ways that we can receive information. Like, it can come through our awareness, it can come through our body, or it can come through vibration itself. And in particular, you mentioned the virus. Like, when we're working with things in matter, starting to synergize or find the vibration that resonates with that particular thing, we can tune in and receive what that might be about through our vibration, through a vibrational frequency in the matter of our body, which is different to kind of going into subtle energies around the body, actually tuning in through the body and learning how to move the frequency of the matter of our body to be able to tune in with other things in matter.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, because it really brings us back to the metaphor Bruce offered in the foreword, which is that we are frequency beings, and what stations are we listening to? And the instead of just being in a narrow bandwidth, we want to expand, and we want to expand not just into the light, but also into the dark. And we want to be, it's like a frequency fluid, more fluid with our frequencies, and that helps us shape shift as shamans. So we are wrapping up our.
Can I say something really quick, Kamala?
I
got dropped out as Bruce was beginning to speak, and I just wanted to clarify. I'm a trance channel, and so I know I'm a channel too.
Thank you, Jerry. I know you were the one that originally asked the question, right?
But the question really was about, how do we, not the light and the dark, how do we trust the information that's coming through? That's really what my question was.
Good,
versus,
thanks.
We're asking questions of the light, we hope, and we think the questions are coming from for our highest good, the guidance. And sometimes it isn't.
So can I give you a quick response?
Thank you.
KamalaDevi. Yeah, the essence would be that we're spiritual scientists, shamanic scientists, which means test it out. If you have information coming through or energy coming through, be a scientist, see how that affects your environment, make a hypothesis, test it, get some data. So use your own intelligence and your heart and your body to road test whatever's coming through to make sure that you feel in alignment with it.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think as a kind of a parting metaphor, that this is a great laboratory of love, and we're all experimenting into the unknown. And we hope that this book, that Sex Shamans, is a guide for you and a companion for you in this exploration. So I genuinely hope that you get the book, share it with your friends, help us promote it and support it. Like, it's our desire to really expand the conversation on the planet around sexual shamanism. And so you being part of our intimate, early official launch, I'm hoping that you feel kind of enrolled in supporting us and getting the word out there and sharing the love. So thank you all for showing up today. Co-authors, go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll say our blessings and goodbye as we log off.
Beautiful.
KamalaDevi, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Love
so
you all.
much.
Katie.
For your multi-dimensional realities.
Amazing sheets.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Celebrating.
Keep sharing your magic with the world.
Be free, be alive, be yourself.
Be juicy, vibrating, radiating.
Clear the channels so you can listen.